Well, hello again. It's Paul from Ski Instructor Academy. Sitting next to me is Andy from Snow Camps Europe.
Hello.
It's another podcast time, and we are going to talk about what, Andy? Have you got anything interesting to say today?
Well, we've talked about lift passes in the past, and we talked about the difference in price from last year to this year. And then we were talking a little bit about where does our lift pass money go? And obviously it pays for your lift, pays for you to get up the mountain. You're paying towards the men who are grooming the mountain of a night time, preparation. You're also paying for the Peace Patrol to come and rescue you if you get injured, and to make sure the signage is out and that they put pads around pylons and that kind of stuff, which is all stuff that I think I use from my lift pass. So I use the lift, I use the prepared slopes. I also, at times, will need to call the Peace Patrol to come and help us if someone's hurt themselves, etc. And then I was like, well, hang on a minute. On the Kitzsteinhorn Glacier, we have a massive big park. One that's full of kickers and jumps, another one that's full of rails and boxes, I think they call them. And then we have a super pipe. And all of that needs a team of workers, and it needs some specific machinery. There is a piston body machine that cuts the half pipe, which must cost millions. How much of my lift pass price is paying for that feature that I never use? And is it right that I should pay for that? Or should there be like an entry to the park tariff?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the argument on the other side is that the industry is aware of maybe where it's going, you know, as it changes a little bit and has to adapt with the times. And a lot of younger people want to use the park and pipe, and they want that type of environment on a lift resort. And maybe it encourages families to come because, the parents don't want to go in the super pipe or don't want to go over the boxes, but the kids do. And the kids are encouraging the parents to go to resorts where there's a park and pipe. It's a difficult one because you're right, particularly with the Kitzsteinhorn, who has a super pipe, which is, for people to understand, that's rare. You don't see that on every resort. And it costs, it costs in the region of 100,000 euros, I think, just to set it up. So there is a massive cost involved in that. And of course, the risk of accidents in those areas is higher, etc. That's why the helicopters are usually stopping to pick up those sort of people as well. But it is a balance. It's hard. And I understand that the Kitzsteinhorn and other places, they need to be able to offer these type of little things. I know at one point, I don't know if you remember, but the Maiskogel, a little family mountain, put it in. And they put little boxes in. Maybe it was before your time, I don't know. But
no, it was there, yeah.
They put it in. But remember, they took it out again because they had accidents and problems with the kickers. And they thought it's not worth the stress of it because, people are breaking their arms and legs and stuff going over the kicker and whatever. And we don't want to do that anymore. Does it affect their business? Probably not. I don't know. But again, on the Kitzsteinhorn, it's the same thing. Would it affect their business if they completely got rid of that? But that's like saying, should we now get rid of all the race lanes that are up there? And would that affect their business in such a bad way? Or would it encourage more recreational skiers to come up and fill that gap of racers who, let's face it, racers tend not to spend money within the Alpencentre, let's say. You're more likely to have recreational skiers who'll spend money in restaurants and cafes and stuff like that. Racers will come up and immediatee go off the mountain and have their sandwiches in the bag if they need to. So you could argue they don't need to be there, and they're taking up huge at the pre-season proportions.
Yeah, we've done another podcast about the problems with ski races, haven't we?
Yeah.
We've talked about this.
So I don't know, Andy. It's a hard one to answer because maybe as we're older, we don't want to go flying over a box or whatever.
Yeah, I'm sure there are old people of your age that do go in the park because they came into skiing when park and pipe and all of this sort of stuff started up, and they got into it. But it's like I suppose a gym membership. If I buy a gym membership, but then I want to go to 3 classes a week, typically that's outside of your membership. But if I don't go to them classes, I'm not paying for it within my membership.
Saving money, yeah.
You know what I mean?
There are the options where you could put a shranker, whatever you call it in English,
Like a turnstile.
Like a turnstile,
Yeah.
where you go in through the park entrance and you have to have a different pass, which has got a supplement on. But yeah, I mean, that was always my point about the race lanes. I never understood that they don't charge you to book a race lane. So anybody can go to the information and say, hey, I would like to book a race lane. And they're not going to go, how many people do you have? What's it for? Who's it? Are you licensed to do this? Do you have this? Do you have that? They just book a race lane for you. So you could just book a race lane and go and do short turns up and down all day, because that's my lane.
Yeah, that's my thing, actually.
Yeah. But it's weird, isn't it? It's like, so yeah, it's not. Maybe guys, you let us know what you think, and don't look at it just from the point of view as being in your 50s, 60s, and think, yeah, get rid of the parks, we don't want them. Get rid of, it's like, get rid of the snowboarders, we don't need them snowboarders. Come on, it's like, we need to understand that different people want to do different things and look at it logically. But as Andy says, how much of the investment should be put to one side for that, and is it enough to have a couple of boxes and a little kicker? What more do you need? Do you really need these huge giant things? Yes, if you've got World Cup events, this is why it's there. Good question. Interesting.
The other thing with that, and this will lead on to something else that I think we're going to talk about, is from my experience over the last 10 years, a good number of snow and predominantly snowboard instructors progress to go and work in the park as a shaper, because it's deemed to be the coolest job in the world, from what I see.
Digging?
And I don't understand or see why it's so cool. Out in the freezing cold, digging with a shovel, you may as well be on the M1 motorway digging with a shovel, no?
Well, the view's different, but... and it's not so cool on the M1 motorway.
Well, I just don't see how this is, I'm going to be a shaper. So? You wanted to be a snowboard teacher because it was cool, but now you want to progress onto super cool.
That's a progression.
As a shaper, a shoveler of snow. Why not just go and be a snowman maker? It's the same thing, is it not? I'm sure I'm going to annoy loads of park shapers by saying this, but I don't understand why it is deemed to be such a cool job.
Well, again, it's...
maybe just because I'm not cool.
Well, yeah, I mean, maybe their perception is it's a cool job, but actually everybody around them is probably thinking, all right, cool, thanks. But actually, from my side, the cooler job would be the snowboard instructor than the snowboard shaper. But yeah.
Maybe it's paid better.
It is, and I said that to you before, that interestingly, a lot of people who do a number of seasons and decide they want to do this as a career, they actually do what I would say winter seasons as a career, but they do stop being an instructor and move into either the sports shops, where they get paid more, or better still, what they look for is the good paying night clubs and bars who actually pay sufficiently where they can still ski or board through the day, and they're getting a lot of money at night time, because people tend to tip in a ski resort pretty well. I
thought what amazes me is the amount that waiters and waitresses get paid. And I'm sure it's not just in Kaprun and Zell, it'll be across the whole of Austria. They get paid their basic salary is way more than a ski teacher, and that's before their tips.
Yeah.
And you put their tips in, they are putting in some serious money. Yeah. And I think this kind of also shows why some of the waiters are professional waiters, and they've been waiters in the same restaurants, or they've moved from restaurant to restaurant for 20 odd years. I know there's a guy, you probably don't know him, a guy called George, who used to work in the Kupferkessel. He has worked there all his life, and he retired last year. And I was like, why did he do that? And then the person I was with said, do you know how much money he's been making? And it was a phenomenal amount of money. Now, whether I could have been a waiter, and I was a waiter back in the time, in my earlier years, but whether I could have been a waiter for the whole of my life in the same restaurant, I don't know. It must take a certain mentality. But his earnings were phenomenal.
Yeah. I mean, some people were telling me, that it wasn't uncommon to get €200 a night in tips. And then let's say, like you said, I saw some advertisements on somewhere for staff they were looking for, and it was about €2,000 base, the wage that they were coming out with. Yep. So you then add those tips in. Yeah. Yeah, and their working hours that mean they can still board and ski. They can still actually enjoy that, and some of them even then are board instructors still,
Yeah,
or
especially
ski
in the peak
instructors.
weeks,
Because they can get even extra money and still keep their hand in. And therefore, I think this is when people ask me, one of the most common questions from parents is, if my son, daughter does this as a career, they're not really into schooling, they want this type of lifestyle, I want them to be happy, can they make a living? Yes, they can if they're willing to work. There's loads of opportunities, but not as a ski or board instructor alone, unless you are in the elite of the ski coaching industry. And anybody, there's a tiny margin of people in that ski coaching elite that make enough money to actually say, oh, well, that's my job, I'm a ski instructor, and I do make enough money. Most people will have to supplement it with other jobs, or they need to move out of it completely, like we're saying, and become a waiter or go work in a sports shop or something like that. And now, the other argument is, even I would have considered that because there's no smoking in bars now. The thing that always put me off was the smoking.
I worked in bars and restaurants for a long time, and I hated it. The smokiness, and then when that went, I was like, I could actually go. Well, I've got a restaurant now in the summer, but I'm in the kitchen. Yeah. But I was like, I could actually go back and work behind a bar, albeit I'd want it to be a certain type of bar with a certain type of clientele and not too late night and da 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 da. But I could quite easily go and work a bar again because of that.
Yeah.
Because the environment is so much nicer.
Yeah, exactly. They've got it. Literally, you were being poisoned when you were going to work. Nowadays, like you say, the environment's much nicer, and if you're in the right type of bar where you can actually hear yourself think and talk, you're actually communicating with people, you're interacting, and that interaction is also getting paid well, and you look at it and think, why not? And even if it is just from, let's say, December to the end of March, beginning of April, and you're making €4,000 or €5,000 a month, not bad, because then you can take a couple of months off, do a summer bit, take a couple of months off, and you're back in the winter. And probably people are seeing that as the pattern. So parents need to look at that and think to themselves, well, yes, my son, daughter can make a living, but you have to install in them work ethic still. Like, you still, let's face it, these people are working in these bars. They're working. They tend not to stop.
Well, the thing is, six days a week is the average as well, isn't it? You don't normally get a 5-day-a-week contract in Austria. It's 6 days a week.
Yeah.
And you're working hard. And because you're in a ski resort and everything is typically weekly transient, the people leave, it gets full on busy again. By the end of the week, they leave, it gets full on busy again. And yes, you'll have a couple of weeks where there's downtime in January and maybe in March, but overall, you will be more continually busier throughout the whole, let's say, 18 weeks than you would in a bar in, let's say, the UK for 18 weeks. I nearly pressed that button then with my hand. What would have happened if I pressed that?
Well, at least it wouldn't have been that.
Is that the crickets?
That's the crickets. Oh, I haven't
Sounds like the crickets. There they are. I wonder what that one is. Could be like a farting noise or something.
No, that's the old intro.
Is it? Okay, well, we don't want to do that. Anyway, back to it. Where were we?
I have no idea. I have no idea anymore.
But I think so. If that person's just coming to do a gap year, a one-season thing, the earnings is irrelevant because it's about the experience, isn't it? But what we're saying, and we've gone off on a tangent from why I call park shapers the coolest people on the mountain, to can you make money as a ski teacher, which we have also made another podcast about, haven't we?
We have, and I do want to point out that it's not that easy for some of you, because I think what will happen is I'll probably have this influx of comments of people going, oh, can you know where you can get a job? It's like, no, I don't know where you can get jobs. That's up to you to look around and find jobs. And I would imagine a lot of people who have that type of job, as Andy's just pointed out, will stay in that job because they know they're getting paid well until they always have a fallout eventually with the boss or something like that and they leave. But if you do get that type of opportunity, then take it, because you're giving yourself that freedom of boarding and skiing through the day, and making enough money at night that you can actually sustain it.
There is a shortage of gastronomy workers in Austria. There has been since COVID. So if you are in a position that you've got the right to work in Europe, whether you've got European passport, you're in Austria already, you've got an Article 50, you will find a job in gastronomy. It's simply very, very easy because there is such a shortage.
Yeah, absolutely.
And look on places like the AMS, which is the job centre here in Austria. You'll see a plethora of jobs.
Yes. So the season is underway. We're already into our pre-season courses, and by this time, there's nearly 200 people in resort. It's most people are going off to either work this year in Japan, or they're going to be remaining in Europe if they have the right to remain to work here. And then, we've got the big Canadian courses kicking off very soon. Well, actually, they're underway, one or two of them. And also France went from small to doubled its size this year already. Booked out already. I haven't even got a bed left in France. So that was quick. And for next year, you've got New Zealand on the cards, and of course Argentina again, which, as you know, with Gary and I, we'll be talking a lot about that. And then camps and clinics, guys. We'll put the dates up so that you can see when the camps and clinics are available, because, if you want to join us down here and, see what's going on and have the snow security of the glacier, but at the same time, you've got opportunities to ski like Zelmsee right across to Saalbach Hinterglemm. There's the piste area is huge here, so there's a lot of opportunities to come down here. Book your accommodation early, I would say, this season, and
definitely,
and your flights.
And I think the December camp is looking very, very good from both sides, from my side and from your side. And the December camp's always a good one because it's before Christmas. It's 2 weeks before Christmas. It's a cheaper week. The lift pass price is actually cheaper because we're out of peak season. It's only 308 instead of the 348. But also that sets you up for the rest of your season. If you're going on a second or a third trip, whether it be with the family or friends, that December camp is like your kick-off to the season. And I think that's why it's so popular.
And historically, it's been the snow tends to be good. Again, we've mentioned before, we can't promise that, but historically it tends to be good. And the best bit is that normally the pressure on the Kitzsteinhorn goes away because people are moving to their own resorts by then.
And the courses are almost over, if not over. I said all the races have disappeared because the snow has started to come into the other resorts.
Yeah.
So it's a good time, and hence we are very much taking bookings left, right, and centre.
Yeah. I think that's going to be a very strong course, and it's a great ambience in that course. So that would be a good opportunity to look at. Have a look through the website. You'll be to see what you need to see. And from our side, we're going to pick you up on the next one. Bye for now. Oh no! I'm going to do this. So you guys say something?
No.
All right. We need to wait.
No, we've got to get it in.
Let's do that right.